Greetings and welcome to Talk a Little, Learn a Lot, the American Society of Naval Engineers podcast, during which we talk about all things ASNE. I'm your host, Stephen Phillips. Today, I'm joined by Rear Admiral Mark Whitney and Captain Bill Crow, both U.S. Navy retired, two of the three ASNE vice presidents, to learn more about them and their vision for ASNE. Rear Admiral Mark Whitney is a 1984 graduate of the Maine Maritime Academy. He served as a surface warfare officer aboard USS Luce as both main propulsion assistant and engineering officer. He became an engineering duty officer and served in assignments such as Naval Reactors Representative at Norfolk Naval Shipyard, Chief Engineer aboard USS Theodore Roosevelt, and the 47th Shipyard Commander of Puget Sound Naval Shipyard and Intermediate Maintenance Facility. His final assignment in the Navy was Director, Fleet Maintenance, Fleet Forces Command. In July 2019, he retired from active duty with over 35 years of service. He subsequently worked in the surface ship maintenance industry for large and small companies, including BAE Systems, as the Vice President, Deputy General Manager Ship Repair, and R&P Technologies as Vice President of Industrial Operations. Mark is currently the Executive Director of the Virginia Digital Maritime Center at Old Dominions University's Office of Enterprise Research and Innovation. Captain Bill Crow graduated from the United States Naval Academy in 1980. He served as a surface warfare officer in a career that culminated with assignments as Surface Warfare Director, Commander Operational Test and Evaluation Forces, and Executive Officer of Naval Station Norfolk, and Commanding Officer of Joint Expeditionary Base Little Creek, Fort Story. Captain Crow is now President of the Virginia Ship Repair Association, where he oversees execution of the organization's mission, workforce recruitment, and ensuring industry's best practices. Mark, Bill, thank you for joining me on the podcast. I look forward to our discussion. Mark, everyone presumably has a passion for naval engineering, something that connects them to the organization. What is it for you?
So from my earliest recollections growing up, I've always been fascinated with things mechanical. My dad went to the U.S. Naval Academy. He was a class of 59. And as we were preparing for this podcast, it flashed a memory for me that I remember looking through a musty trunk in our basement and found a Principles of Naval Engineering. And that book fascinated me with the boilers, the engines, the distilling units, etc. And then eventually was part of the passion that got me to Maine Maritime Academy, and then the interest in engineering. And then, as you read in the bio, a very heavy focus on ships, industrial base, naval engineering throughout my entire career. Luckily, that's what led me down the path of becoming an engineering duty officer. The technical rigor, the span of what engineering touches has always been intriguing to me and very passionate about.
And Bill, how about you? What connects you to ASNE?
Well, I was actually raised in Western Kentucky in a very agrarian society. A lot of farming, a lot of agriculture, not necessarily per se hands-on, direct engineering as we now practice and know today with through the American Society of Naval Engineers, but did see quite a bit of practical, implementation in regards to those things that existed on the farm, the mechanical things that were there, the augers, the movers, the tractors, the bush hogs, all those sort of things, power takeoffs, and those sort of things. So, yeah, I wouldn't say that I was overly an engineer at that point. Going through the Naval Academy, you were pretty much inundated every day with some sort of an engineering facet, and you go through the basics of a lot of the engineering training, which we did while we were there. I think my true engineering came as Mark's did very much for him on my first ship. which was an old FF-1078 class, the USS Ferris. I started out as a communications officer, then went to STEAM MPA school, which is the best school I've ever been to in the Navy, and then ended up going from coming back to my ship as the auxiliaries electrical officer. Then I was moved into the MPA job. And then my chief engineer got picked up for a senior assignment. So I was actually chief engineer on a 6-month deployment. I loved steam engineering. I was kind of like Mark was with regards to his mechanical discussions. There's nothing like steam engineering. I don't care what anybody says. And to be a steam engineer, as I used to describe it, because I have letters in all three, being I'm a diesel and qualified diesel EL, I'm a qualified gas turbine EL, and I'm a qualified steam EL. And of those three, as I described it many times before, I think the goodness of the steam is that in a steam engineer, you're a doctor. You're inside the body and the body surrounds you. And if you don't handle what the body's giving you in regards to a symptom and get it under control, your whole body's going to crash and burn. And that was what was so unique about it, was that you really did learn the true system of what the steam cycle brought to the thing. With the other two, yes, are they very valuable engineering platforms? Yes, they are. But the thing about them is you're the doctor on the outside looking in, and everything's kind of in a box with regards to that. The other thing that connects me to ASNE is when I was a young materiel officer, we used to have these ASNE luncheons that were mandatory fun at the time. Okay. And we were made to go because I was staff materiel officer, but that really did open my eyes to a great social interaction, a great social networking capability, but also a lot of great presentations that opened my eyes and continue to enhance that ability. So, and from there, attending the evening luncheons at the Hampton Roads chapter, I've not attended those here as of recent, just because of my current job, but I've also been very active over the last 12 years in participating in the Fleet Maintenance and Modernization Symposium. So there's a lot of connections, and I will tell you, it is its foundings and what it is truly great.
Well, it sounds like you gave a lot of description about why you like ASNE. I'm going to ask Mark the same thing. Mark, what do you like about ASNE?
So I like the opportunity for the networking and the connections and the way that you can see how it creates the dialogue. I've always appreciated ASNE's ability to create a dialogue amongst stakeholders across a broad range of issues. So if you look at each of the different focus areas of the symposia, the now within the last many years, the STEM outreach efforts, the local chapters, who they bring in for their speakers, that all engages a broad swath of folks in multiple disciplines to be part of a dialogue. And I think that's spectacular.
Mark, what ASNE events have you participated in to date?
I have participated in nearly all of them at some point, either on active duty as a panelist or a keynote speaker, continued that afterwards. And so writ large, I'd say nearly all of them. And like I said, each one has its own distinct focus or flavor to it. And that's why it kind of covers the broad range of competencies and things that are important to naval engineering.
Bill, what ASNE events have you participated in? Or like Mark, maybe you'll say like, well, I've participated in so many. Is there one or two that really stand out for you?
I think, as Mark pointed out, the MAC, the Multi-Agency Craft Conference, which we just concluded over here at the Renaissance Hotel, enormously valuable for getting those players in industry together, one, to display their wares, but two, to commence dialogue and networking and discussion in regards to how do we make that part of what we're doing in the United States better with the smaller craft that are out there. How do we make them more sophisticated? How do we get to the autonomous vessels that are there? I think one thing that I didn't discuss earlier was, I think the goodness of what ASNE brings to the table is that, as Mark said, it brings a huge swath of people from various aspects of all engineering to the table. It brings the engineering duty flavored type officers that we have in the Navy with those that are operators. And between the two, you get the operational flavor of what the operator has to take to see with the engineering duty officer with the training that's off to the side of it that can that can take it back to the desk and do the research and do the engineering. I think the FMMS is hugely impactful with the different technical papers that are routed, what's taught in those technical papers, the guest speakers that are there, and again, on a much broader scale compared to MAC or compared to Mega Rust and those sort of things that are out there. TSS and those sort of things. They all bring value to the table, and to try to single one of them out, I don't think would be fair. Although I would say FMMS is the one that does pretty much bring them all together.
Have you ever written for the Naval Engineers Journal?
As I pointed out, I'm from Kentucky. We don't write very well, but we like pictures, so no.
And how about you, Mark? Have you ever written for the Journal?
I have not either. It flashed a memory for me that while I was out at Puget, I'm pretty sure I tasked my wardroom with coming up with an article, but I don't think it ever came to fruition. Because what the time frame that I was thinking of was when we were embarking on something pretty innovative inside of the naval shipyard world, and I thought it was worth a discussion, but in the thrash of things, no. But that is a regret that I have of not having written for NEJ.
Well, maybe sometime in the future then.
Yep, it's on my bucket list.
What changes, Mark, would you like to see for ASNE for the future?
So I think ASNE is, it's one of my favorite books is Tipping Point. I believe ASNE is at a tipping point, and the tipping point is the path in the tipping point is either a steep decline to irrelevance or a slow, hard climb towards engaging and expanding and garnering interest, i.e. members. And participation from a broader swath of demographics, generational competencies within what naval engineering touches, and I think that's absolutely necessary. And so I think that's thing one for the ASNE leadership. And we have discussed that already, but I think that's kind of thing one that we have to figure out.
Bill, and you, do you have any ideas for ASNE that Mark has not mentioned?
I think he covered a broad swath of it. I think the other thing, which I'm a big one of my favorite books is Freedom's Forge, which if you were to read it today, you would say that even though it flashes back to the late 30s and during World War II, it's very much has a lot of similarities to where we are today. I think what needs to happen is that we need to, as ASNE, we have allowed ourselves, the association has grown itself, or the society has grown itself into those that tend to be longer in the tooth, those that have been around a while, those who saw success in their era of how we did business back in their day that we instituted that worked very well. And I think, I go back to my own kids. I have 4 that are in their 30s now, so the millennials. And I will tell you, it's totally amazing to me. I really get kind of upset when people say, oh, those millennials. Well, I tell you what, those millennials really got it wired, because my kids don't even have cable TV. I can't, I watch the news. My kids don't watch the news. Everything they do is either via some sort of a technical device or some sort of an internet or some sort of a platform, being LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, all of those sort of things. And they get their news via their phone. They're kept up on things. They are able to listen to podcasts on their phones. My kids listen to enormous podcasts. I don't know that they'll listen to this one or not because they might fall asleep because dad's talking, and they certainly heard me enough. But I do think that, those are things that we've got to get instituted. We've got to get young blood interested in this society, and we've got to get them signed up and at the table and let them take the reins as we move forward to do those things that will put us into the 21st century, because there is a huge amount of relevancy and application for what this society brings to the table, bar none.
Well, I certainly hope that this podcast, that Talk a Little, Learn a Lot, will help support that mission. But let's also recognize that there are some things from ASNE that we need to keep. So, Bill, what aspects or elements of ASNE would you want to preserve?
I think the underbedding and the founder rock of what ASNE stands for, which is United States, we can certainly, beat ourselves up in regards to the press and everything else with regards to what we possess with technology. But we are very, very well in the lead and in the van of all of those in technology. And that's because of things of what I think the Society of Naval Engineers brings to the table. As Mark pointed out in the very beginnings with his remarks, it's a group and across cross breeding, I guess you would say, of those that are out there, and cross pollination among many different types of engineers that come to the table. And because of our society and because of us being free enterprise, where do we keep ourselves? That allows us to keep ourselves at the tip of that spear. But a lot of that and the backdrop and where it comes from and what makes it stand and continue to exist is what ASNE brings to the table.
And how about you, Mark? What aspects of ASNE should we keep?
So I think there's an opportunity for, as we just discussed, if we expand the area of influence outside of the bounds of just naval engineering to all of the things that naval engineering touches. So take a snapshot of any large, complex ship repair, shipbuilding organization, HR, QA, environmental, facilities, business, finance, public affairs, project management, production trades, you fill in the blank. Those should all be within what ASNE touches and talks about. But then to your direct question, what do we snap back and not lose sight of? It's standards. It's the technical technical rigor for the engineers, but the rigor behind what allows us to do the things that we do, that then allows the sailors at sea and the artisans in the shipyards to do their work effectively. I can think of no finer leadership opportunity than to get out of the way of sailors and artisans in the shipyard for being able to do their jobs. And I think we can do that by sticking to the first principles, but then the expansion is what allows or creates the opportunity for ASNE.
Mark, what are the key challenges that naval engineering is facing?
So I think naval engineering is facing a challenge with a couple of things. One is being able to understand data differently. And what I mean by that is with new technologies evolving, so Industry 4.0 and 5.0 and even now a 6.0, that unlocks an awful lot of data that is now readily available. And it feels sometimes like we're stuck in PDFs. And so I think there's an opportunity with AI, with machine learning, large language models, and even on the workforce development side, because once you insert the technology and now you've got this data, you also now have to invest in bringing your workforce up to speed with that technology and creating an opportunity to hire new people that have that skill. And so there's learning science behind that I think is ripe for opportunity within ASNE and writ large the industry. And then the other aspect of that is with the that the new technologies and the data, one of the other things, I mean, our most precious resources are people. The second most precious resource is not the lathe or the pier or the building, it's time. And we haven't quite figured out time travel yet. So understanding the relevance of time in the sequence of things that we need to expand our capability on. So I remember years ago there was a brief, and it was talked about the OODA loop, right? Observe, orient, decide, and act. And so our OODA loop is like this big, and the OODA loop of some of our adversaries is much smaller. So how do we get our OODA loop? How do we get our time to decision making inside of theirs? And so I think that's another opportunity for naval engineering to tackle. And I know it is, but I think that's trade space for ASNE to tackle the dialogue around that and see what we can do, because I think there's a lag behind what the warfighter, Bill's point, operator is demanding, and what we as organizations that are trying to support it. In a lot of cases, there's barriers to us being able to support it as quickly as what the operator would like. I think that's within the realm of ASNE to tackle.
Bill, do you have anything to add to that?
I think the other person or the other entity that plays a huge role in that is the Navy itself. And if you go back, and again, I go back to my reference of Freedom's Forge, and you read what was in there. We weren't real efficient in the late 30s either. It was Knudsen and some of the real industrials that came in from outside industry that helped to move the needle in the right direction and get a lot of that bureaucracy moved. And I couldn't agree more with Mark. Time is of essence. Time will be of essence, especially if any type of shooting were to start. If any type battle damage occurs, time is going to be of the essence. How do we cut that time? I mean, it seems like we migrated somewhat into a sphere of operations that we've got many things that have been put into place that have to be adhered to, or that have to be checked upon, that have to be looked at, that were put on maybe because there was a one-off somewhere, or maybe a two-offs, but not a massive thing that caused it. And I think that's where we need to go back to the table, where ASNE really does bring that value to the table of going, not over engineering it, right size engineering, by taking what the trained engineers know from their aspect, and then what the operators know from theirs, and making it as efficient. Because as Mark said, if we don't turn inside of our adversaries, we're going to be in trouble as we move forward in the future, and we've got to learn how to do that. And ASNE is a perfect platform to help propel that forward.
Bill, in talking about challenges, Mark also mentioned investment, like investment in people. What do you see as opportunities for investment in naval engineering?
I think one of the things that ASNE has also, back in the day, as times were in the past, where we were with trades and technical certifications, and welding, pipe fitting, ship fitting, coatings, sheet metal, structural fitting, all of those sort of things, marine electrician. The people who did the work didn't necessarily have to be up to speed on everything that is going on and happening out there. And I think one of those things that we've seen in the world of automation, which Mark's organization brings to the table, is the digital and the simulation items that are out there that are those people that are on the deck plates are doing it can actually utilize to their benefit, but it also brings them more into the technological engineering aspects of it, which they've got to be brought along also. So I think that's another real good avenue for ASNE to look at, of not just those who have a mechanical engineering degree hanging on their wall, but those who are out there in those workforces in the trenches that are doing it every day, that we could do it. I think that's a huge place where there could be investments made that will pay enormous dividends. It will also get at what Mark talked about, which is that efficiency and time. The more we've got them involved in telling them how to cut the times off and how to make it more efficient, the better off that we will be.
Mark, do you have any other ideas about where naval engineering should be investing?
So, yeah, I think Bill hit the nail on the head. The only thing that I would add to that is the way that I believe that the Navy has structured some of its decision making is inhibiting the ability of a large swath of innovation to actually occur. And what I mean by that is multiple award contracts, IDIQ contracts are not what is going to take for-profit and non-for-profit organizations to spark their ability to innovate and invest. That's not an aspect that ASNE has typically tackled. We've tried to in a couple of different forms, but it hasn't really stuck. That's a piece of what we're hoping this upcoming FMMS is going to try and stimulate for discussion. But the reason why I bring that up specifically is that when it comes to investment, that's a key term that you've asked in that question, which is there are criteria or conditions in which investment can be made. And we miss that. We think that just visibility of workload or visibility of, or hearing people say things should spark the ability to invest. No, frankly, no, not even close. And so I think ASNE may want to consider investing some time or some bandwidth or some energy in what it takes for the naval engineering community to be able to invest. That's an interesting aspect that I don't think we've delved into. I hope that answered your question, but that's my thought.
Indeed. Mark, is there anything that you would like to share with the ASNE audience that we've not already discussed?
No, I think we've done a pretty good job of being comprehensive. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Right on. How about you, Bill? You get the last word. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the ASNE audience?
I think the only thing that I would leave is that this is an organization that it's as Mark pointed out, it's at its tipping point, and we've got to continue to strive to keep it current, keep it updated, to keep it where it needs to be with regards to its members and scratching the itch of its members and what they need that are out there with it. So I totally agree with him. I would tell you the only other thing that I would discuss in regards to what Mark pointed out with regards to those things that we think we do need to invest in, which I didn't, is really taking a look at what information are we gathering? Have we over-engineered ourselves to so much data reporting that industry is providing a huge amount of data, which is also costing because they got to have people who do that. And then in the end run, what of that data is really being looked at? And of that data, what's being looked at is probably a very small piece of that pie. But of that piece of the pie, what are we doing with that data that we're looking at to improve and move the needle in the ability to do and make better the efficiencies and the time to get things done quicker and faster and better? And with that, I will also say to you, thank you very much, Mark. We've been friends for a long time. I've respected you immensely in every position. You are one fabulous naval officer, and you continue to represent everything in regards to the marine industry and especially the ship repair and shipbuilding very well, sir.
I'm blushing, Bill. Thank you very much. That it's mutual in that regard.
Well, thank you. Thank you both, Mark and Bill, for taking this time to discuss your view of ASNE, thoughts on the future and the state of naval engineering. I hope that we can welcome you back in the future to Talk a Little, Learn a Lot, the podcast of the American Society of Naval Engineers.